Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm creating shaped die-cut holiday cards using the Bibi's Little Blessings collection from Spellbinders. This is the Blessing Angels. Then we have Nativity Blessings with lots of different dies in there to create the Nativity. And then we have the Divine Arch Card Creator. So I'm going to be using this for the base of all of my cards. It's perfect for a shaped card base. I don't have sentiments with that collection, so I'm going to be using the Holiday Banners Greetings press plate and die set, and I have some matte glimmer foil here. I'm going to foil them in my glimmer system with the matte glimmer foil. I just think it's going to work really well with what I planned for the cards that I'm creating. You could also use these press plates in your glimmer or in your Better Press system and use it with whatever cardstock you like or whatever inks you like. So after putting the foil or the sentiments on the Hammermill cardstock, I'm going to use my solid hot foil plate and I'm going to solid hot foil them onto another piece of Hammermill cardstock. This way I have twice the sentiments and I can pick and choose which sentiments are going to go best with the cards. Sometimes they're going to work better with the white background. Sometimes they're going to work better with the white letters with the gold background. So when using the glimmer system, you need to make sure that it's nice and hot. In between the different things, you can see that my red light went on, so it wasn't quite hot enough yet. I waited until the ready button, the green light went on, then I pressed the timer button on. Once that timer button stops flashing, then you can take that whole sandwich out and put it through your die cutting machine. There is a list of compatible die cutting machines on the Spellbinders website. You need to use the glimmer system for the heat and the die machine for the pressure. It doesn't work without one of those two combinations. So once we have our sentiments foiled, I'm going to use the coordinating die set. I'm going to tape it in place and I'm going to die cut those sentiments. You can see that we create a ton of sentiments all at once here. Any of the sentiments that I have extra, I'm going to put in a Ziploc bag right with that press plate and die set. Next time I go to use it, I might already have sentiments ready to go that are going to work for the project that I'm creating. So I always like to keep them right with that press plate and die set. That way I know exactly where to find them. It's the easiest system for me. I did the first set. Now I'm going to do the second set and die cut those sentiments. They're really easy to line up to know exactly where you want them to die cut. I just center those sentiments in the die set, tape them in place. I don't want that die to move on me while I'm doing my die cutting, and then run it through that die cutting machine. So I'm going to put those off to the side so that while I'm creating, I can pick and choose which sentiment is going to work for the card. Some of them are not going to work for this particular theme, so some of them obviously are going to be kept for future projects anyways, but it's easy to do all of them all at once. There's no point in picking and choosing which sentiment from that set because it's going to take the same amount of time. So I have all of my pieces die cut for my cards here. Now for the background, I started by doing my score mark at the 6-inch mark, and I just thought it was a little bit too small, so I end up redoing it at the 5-inch mark. These cards created end up being about 5 by 7 inches, so they're a large format card. This would not work on an A2 card base. You could use some of the die cut elements on an A2 card base if you wanted to narrow it down and have a smaller card base, but that Divine Arch Card Creator die set does create a 5 by 7 card. And then it has a few extra elements on there in different layers, so you can get really elaborate or really simple. For my first card, I'm using the Blessing Angels to have all of my pieces die cut out of regular cardstock, except for the wings. I have that die cut out of antique white glitter cardstock from the antique white treasured cardstock pack. I thought it would look lovely to have those wings sparkly. You could also use vellum for the wings. I think that would look really nice as well. The cross that I'm going to have her hold is die cut out of some gold pearl cardstock. So again, just a bit of a different texture. Now, if you don't have gold pearl cardstock, for a lot of the elements that I have as gold on my cards, I'm using the Lisa Horton gold pad on some white cardstock, and it's a great way to create the look of specialty cardstock with regular cardstock. So as I'm putting these pieces together, you can see that I laid all of my pieces out, and when I lay them out, I kind of lay them close to where they're intended to go on the base die. It makes it really easy to know that you have all of the pieces there and that you can easily grab them. And obviously, as we're creating, there's less and less die cuts to pick up and to glue on. Sometimes with pieces like this, it can be a little bit overwhelming because there's a lot of them, but by laying them out, it just kind of visually organizes them and it makes it a little bit less overwhelming. I'm also using the wax tip tool from the handy tool set for some of the smaller die cuts. It makes it really easy to lift them up and just put them in place. My angel here is done, so we're going to start working on the background for our card. So I have the layer pieces for the card die cut out of just white cardstock. For this layer, I'm going to be ink blending around the outside edge with some Uncharted Mariner Distress ink. I'm not going to make the entire thing one color because otherwise I might as well just die cut it out of colored cardstock. I love the look of ink blending where you get some lights and darks to it. I think it gives it a little bit more visual interest when you're creating. So when I'm doing this, I am making sure that my ink is darker towards the outside edges, lighter towards the center. Some of these pieces are going to have layers over top of them. Some of them are not. Now, in between my different colors of ink, I always clean off my sticky mat and let it completely dry. For these, the layers that I have here, I'm going to use the gold Lisa Horton ink pad. This is just such a beautiful gold, and again, it's a really great way to pretend you have specialty cardstock when you don't. I love using a matte gold, but I've gone through all of my matte gold in my treasured cardstock packs, so this is a great way to fake it. It gives the look of a matte gold cardstock, but obviously we're using white cardstock for it. And I have my gold pad just recently re-inked, so it's really nice and juicy. You can see that when I did this large piece here, I only did it around the edges. That blue ink blended piece is going to go right over top, so we only need to put the ink where we're going to see it. There's no point in covering the entire piece because we're not going to see that center part. So as we're doing this, I'm layering everything together. I'm gluing everything with that liquid glue. I use that liquid glue for pretty much everything. There's very few things that I don't use it with. You can pick and choose how much glue you use. It only takes like 5, 10, maybe 15 seconds for the glue to start to grab when you're using it with cardstock, and then it starts it sticks really well, and I've never had anything fall apart. The only thing that takes longer than regular cardstock is if you're using specialty cardstock or like the glitter cardstock that I used with the wings. That will take a little bit longer. The specialty cardstock, they have a little bit of a plastic coating on them, so they're only really drying from the cardstock layer. And then the glitter, the glue kind of seeps into there first, then it starts to set up. So it just takes a little bit longer. So once I have my detailed pieces on there, I add my little angel. And then for this one, I did one of the solid hot foiled sentiments. It just seemed like it would suit the card a little bit better. I added a couple dots of stickles to the centers of the flowers on her little head there, just to add a little bit of extra texture and a little bit of sparkle. So the pieces in this set are really easy to put together, I find. I tend to just die cut all of them, layer them together. You can see that I assembled this off screen only because I forgot to hit the record button. These are assembled very similarly to the angel that I did for the first card. When I assemble them, I lay all of the pieces out so I know exactly where all of the pieces are going to go. I'm going to do another one of the Jesus in the manger for my last card, so you'll see that assembled, but Mary and Joseph here, you won't see that assembled simply because I messed up. I put those off to the side and we're ready to start creating our background. So for my backgrounds for the different cards, I tried to do them a little bit different from each other. They're fairly similar, but just some different elements layered on top of each other so they would have a little bit of a different look to them. So once again, I used the Uncharted Mariner for one of my larger pieces, again being a little bit heavier towards the outside edges, lighter towards the center. This one here, the center part's going to be completely covered with some other layers, so we're not even going to see it. But again, I like the look of the ink blending because we have some lights and darks and not just a solid color. For the smaller piece here, I'm using some scattered straw distress ink, being darker towards the center and lighter towards the outside edges. This one is going to have the little star rays on it, so I want those to be a little bit darker right underneath those star rays and lighter towards the edges. So for these two layers, I'm once again using the Lisa Horton gold ink pad, covering them completely and then setting those aside to completely dry. And between each and every ink blending, I totally clean my mat off and then set it aside so that it's dry and ready to go for the next color. I don't want to accidentally get a wrong color when I'm doing that ink blending. For my card bases, for all 3 card bases, I'm creating those bases exactly the same. I'm scoring them at the 5-inch mark. That's just right above that little scallop to go in before the arch. And I just think by doing that, we still have a decent amount on the inside of the card that you can write a message on. Once I have those lines scored, I make sure that I have a really nice hinge there. And then I just add glue above that score line, kind of keeping away from the score line. I don't want the glue to seep past that, and then glue those 2 pieces together. Then we can start adding the layers to the front of the card. And when I glue the 2 pieces together, I make sure that everything's lined up, even the bottom of the card. I don't want to accidentally have one a little bit curved or a little bit twisted. Then I added that blue ink blended layer. Now I added the scattered straw ink blended layer, and then we have a frame here that is with that gold ink. And now we're ready to add the piece here with the little star rays. Now this piece here, the piece that is cut out, I'm going to be using it on my last card, so it's not going to go to waste at all. I wanted to show a card with both parts of it, so you can pick and choose which part you want, whether you want the outer part or the inner part. Neither one is right or wrong, it's just personal preference. Then I have a star die cut from some beeswax cardstock and added that to the center. Then we can add our Mary and Joseph and Baby Jesus. And because we have those 3 die cuts for the center, I kept the outer edges a little bit more simple. I didn't use those leaf pieces or branch pieces on this one. You certainly could if you wanted it to be a little bit more elaborate, but I wanted my focal point to be the center of the card and the nativity scene, so I left it fairly simple. So here I have another one of those sentiments from the Holiday Banner Greetings Press Plate and Die Set, and I put the solid hot foil plus the plain one together so that I can layer both of them on there and just see which one I prefer. For this one, I preferred the regular foiled sentiment, but again, you could easily swap them. There's really not a right or wrong, it's just personal preference. I added a little bit of stickles to that star to add a little bit of sparkle to it, and then around the halo around Baby Jesus, again, just to add a little bit of sparkle. You could do gold ink for either one of those if you want, and I'm going to do that with this last card, just put a little bit of gold ink around those pieces just to show a little bit of a difference. So here we have the little Baby Jesus to assemble, and there's really not a ton of pieces to this. I once again glue them together with that liquid glue, and I put everything laid out so that I know exactly where all of my pieces are. It just makes it easiest for assembling. Sometimes I'll put the glue on the base piece and then use that wax tip tool to lift smaller pieces onto that glue. And sometimes like this, I will put the glue on the back of the pieces. For this one here, I wanted the bundling to look like it was underneath the front of that little bit of straw. So I just kind of tucked it in there to hold it while putting the glue on there. You could easily tuck the piece in there if you wanted to separate or wanted to assemble them separately. Again, personal preference, either one will work. I'm putting a little bit of that gold ink around the halo there, so we still see some of that beeswax cardstock, but it is finished with that gold around the outside edges. I have some white pieces here that I'm going to do with gold ink once again. You can see how nice and juicy that pad is. If you were someone that liked to use up all of the ink on the mat, you could have a piece of, say, mixed media cardstock and be lifting up that ink, spritzing it with some water, lifting up that ink, and probably create a really cool background with that. I opt to be fairly not frugal when it comes to this part of crafting, and I'll just use my damp microfiber cloth and clean it up. Here is the background for this card. So I'm going to do the scattered straw in the center part, with the darkest color being heaviest in the center, and then kind of moving my way out. Then I'm going to do that same Uncharted Mariner around the outside edges, and that is going to be darkest around the outside edges, lighter as we go in. So we have that center piece that is going to go over top of the center here, but we're still going to see that ink blended scattered straw. So I put it in an area where I thought those ink rays were going to go. You could always lay that die cut piece on there to make sure that it is centered. Once I had my Uncharted Mariner done, I wanted to kind of expand where I had that scattered straw, so easy enough to do that. Then we can take our pieces off and we can start to assemble. So once again, I scored the card base at the 5-inch mark, made sure that we had a good hinge there, and then added the glue above that glue hinge. Glued those 2 pieces together, and I'll set them aside with an acrylic block on there just to make sure that everything is nice and flat, holding everything nice and strong, and let all of that glue together, or let that glue start to set. Then we can start adding our different elements to the front. So this piece here at the bottom, I personally like it on there first so that our layers on top of there can kind of cover it, but you could put it on there afterwards if you want. For me, the most important layers are the top ones. I think that little filigree part at the bottom is kind of a decorative piece, so I opt to have it underneath so it's a little bit covered, but I still think that piece looks great on the card, and I think it really suits the whole vibe of that card background. Now this is part of the Bibi's Little Blessings collection, so I used it with her dies that go with this collection, but I think this could be a really fun one to use throughout the year. Just this shape reminds me of like an aviary or a bird cage. I think it could be some beautiful with some bird dies on it. I think you could, it's just a really unique shape for a card base, so I think you can get really creative with it and really have fun with it. So after the gold layer, I put my ink blended layer and then the gold leaves and then that frame with gold around it. Now we have our little starburst rays. We're going to put glue on those pieces and then add them inside that frame. They're just a little bit smaller than the frame, so I'm trying to center it to make sure that it looks even all the way out. Now you can see exactly why I did the scattered straw in the center. It just kind of, you have a contrast between that gold ink and that yellow ink, and I think I really love that contrast between the two of them. I think it makes it a little bit more interesting than, say, if it was that gold ink with, say, blue behind it. I'm going to add a little bit of gold ink around that star before gluing it to the center. Now that star, I'm gluing it to the center of that burst, but you could easily just leave it without and just have it almost looks like a sun or a moon there. And I think that has a really great look to it. But for this particular theme, I think the star is definitely the most suitable. Then we have another foiled sentiment to put on top and a little bit of stickles that I'm going to add just around the halo of baby Jesus there, and we'll let that dry for just a few minutes. Then we have our finished cards. I absolutely love the look of these cards. They just have a really beautiful look to them. You can do many different color schemes as well, but I just love the simple look with all of those gold accents. I think it just kind of suits that theme. I'm really not a gold person, but for me, I just felt that this needed a lot of gold to it. You'll find everything that I've used listed and linked down in the description box below. So if there's something that I haven't mentioned, or if you have a question, please put it in the comments, because there's a good chance that I've missed something. That second card there has the nativity scene, and then our very first one has the little angel on there. I absolutely love just the vibe of this whole collection. It's absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to use that background die for a different type of card. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate the time that you spend with me. I hope you have a fantastic day.